The only thing I can say about all of this definitively is that the system is breaking down. There are no rules. Nothing makes sense. Everything is broken. And perhaps on purpose. Perhaps we are under attack by a foreign adversary of sorts that is playing at our worst vices and weaknesses to destroy us from within. It's the only logical explanation I can think of, but maybe it's a bit of an overstatement. Maybe we are just falling into these traps ourselves. You see, there's this desperate attempt to fight racism. Sounds like a good cause, and it is. Racism is bad. But what happens when it becomes toxic? What if I were to tell you, the New York Times has an article. Well, actually, let me slow down. The New York Times has an article. We're looking at it. Elderly versus essential workers. Who should get the coronavirus vaccine first? Based on the title of this video for which you clicked, you know where I'm going. Well, maybe you didn't click the video. Having an argument about who should get the vaccine first between elderly and essential workers, I think makes a lot of sense. We have people working on the front lines. They're at restaurants. They're at grocery stores. They're supplying us with critical infrastructure tools, things we need to fix our cars and carry on the core functions to maintain a functioning society at the very least. The elderly, however, are the ones most likely to die from this. So who gets it first? Now, that's an argument that I think is fair and tough. A good leader will have to make that call. Maybe the answer is give it to both of them in equal levels. What if I told you that one professor suggested there are too many white old people, and that's why they should not get the vaccine? Because that's what the New York Times has actually published in this article, straight up saying that the older groups tend to be whiter. So you have this guy, he's a professor at University of Pennsylvania, Harold Schmidt, and the New York Times says, Harold Schmidt, an expert in ethics and health policy at the University of Pennsylvania, said that it is reasonable to put essential workers ahead of older adults given the risks, and that they are disproportionately minorities. Older populations are whiter, Dr. Schmidt said. Society is structured in a way that enables them to live longer instead of giving additional health benefits to those who already had more of them. We can start to level the playing field a bit. Level the playing field. Do you know what that means in this context? Level the playing field? It means some racial groups must die, apparently, thanks New York Times, for the sake of a different racial group. Older people based on race do not get the vaccine. Talk about psychotic and downright depraved. But what if I were to tell you in other places, the opposite is actually happening? They're mandating that white people get the vaccine. Well, it's true. Cornell vaccine mandate only applies to white students. And that's why I say nothing makes sense. The system is completely broken. And this is something we've known for quite some time. If you follow the likes of, say, Titania McGrath on Twitter, created by the ever brilliant Andrew Doyle. Titania is a parody woke account that is often nonsensical and contradictory. There's one really funny image where it's like, here's a visual graph of, intersectionality for those that don't understand. And it was just nonsensical lines and concentric circles that you clearly couldn't decipher. And that's the point. There are no rules. Nothing makes sense. Look at this story from the College Fix. Cornell vaccine mandate only applies to white students. Is that racist? I tell you, it's both racist and not racist, I guess. First of all, a lot of people really angry. Why is a choice being given to non-white students as to whether or not they get the vaccine? You're gonna get COVID. They're gonna get sick and die, and you're gonna spread the disease, the illness around the college campus. So why do they have a choice? Well, I think people should have a choice. But many viewed this as some kind of nefarious plot of some nasty vaccine that they're targeting the white people with. I actually think that's not the case. I think it's inverted. Now, you may have seen the viral video of the nurse in Chattanooga. This is crazy stuff, man. This nurse is giving a press conference talking about how on the front line, healthcare workers, they're all going to be getting the vaccine. But then she starts to slow down and blink and rub her head. And she says, I'm sorry, I'm feeling really dizzy. And then she just straight passes out. It was about, I think, 10 minutes, a little bit more than 10 minutes after she got the vaccine. She passes out. Later, they issue a statement saying, it happens all the time. She said, it's very common for me to pass out when I feel pain. Some people responded to the tweet I put out saying that if it's that it is very common for people who get vaccines to faint and things like that. And my response was like, maybe it's common, but it's certainly not common enough for people to know that it's apparently normal, whatever normal might mean. Now, I bring this up because there are many news stories that are showing the vaccine in an extremely negative light. We had another breaking story from CBS. Man, I tell you what, CBS reported, I covered this the other day, but CBS reported there were 5 nurses at the University Medical Center in El Paso. And at one point, you see the doctor, or the nurse, whoever is giving the vaccine, take the cap off, stick the needle in the arm, but there's nothing in the syringe. Now, that's creepy. I think there's a simple solution. The dude accidentally took the used needle from the other person and put a used needle in the arm of the other guy, which is freaky and gross. I'm sure everyone will be fine. Interestingly, though, CBS tweeted that none of the nurses actually ended up getting the vaccine, that something was not really happening. What they claimed on Twitter, and this is from CBS, that when they realized the second person got the shot, but the plunger was empty, the syringe was empty, they said all 5 of the nurses. Now, I think maybe they're wrong. I can't figure this one out. But it sounds like what they're claiming is that in the other instances when the shot was administered, they didn't actually inject anything. I don't believe that's true, but CBS is tweeting this. So the point I'm trying to make here is there are a bunch of stories coming out saying the vaccine is bad. We have a story out of Alaska where they're saying that one of these medical practitioners, frontline workers, had an anaphylactic reaction. Face swells up, throat started closing, and they got rushed to the emergency room of the emergency wing of the hospital. The person apparently then said, "I'm excited to keep going with this," because they're insane, I guess. I don't know what the point is of that story or who's reporting it, but that's nuts. Anyway, here's the point. Because of stories like this, you have people seeing the college fix. College vaccine mandate only applies to white students. They see that and they say, this is nefarious. They're targeting the white people or whatever. Okay, you want to know why I don't think that's the case? Sure, we know about the Bell's palsy from the vaccine tests. What they said was that the amount of Bell's palsy they saw after the vaccine was not higher than your average Bell's palsy numbers you get throughout the year. The issue, though, is I guess that something triggers Bell's palsy. So it may be normal based on regular human interaction with certain objects. But if you knew something was going to give you Bell's palsy, you would avoid it. Bell's palsy may be triggered. I was reading one thing about it where a person was using bug spray. They were, killing some wasps, and that triggered Bell's palsy. They got nerve gets compressed, and then your face gets kind of paralyzed. So maybe that was caused by the bug spray. Maybe there are agents that cause it, but it only happens, say, 1,000 times a year, right? I'm using a random number. If giving people the vaccine triggers is the catalyst for what may cause it, it's important to report. But I'm not saying that's true, okay? I'm just pointing out that a lot of people are concerned that there are health issues with these vaccines, okay? Accepted. That being said, vaccines, I think, are pretty good. And let's put it this way. Here's what I said the other day, and I think this is important. It bears repeating. When you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, you got something wrong with your gut, I'm going to prescribe prescribidone. It's a drug. Take it. Trust me. Do you wonder what's in the drug he's giving you? When you go to the pharmacist and they say, we're giving you, dexamethasone or something, whatever. I'm just making up words. I'm using that on purpose. When they tell you a word, you're like, I don't know what that word is. I went to a doctor and they were like, this is for your joints. And I'm like, I have no idea what that word is. I'll take your word for it, boss. When I went and got shots when I was traveling the world, I just took their word for it. So here's the point I'm getting at, because I'm kind of dragging it on. Sorry. If a doctor advises you, they're giving you something that's going to be good for you, I tend to just assume it's probably true. Does that mean there are side effects and other problems? Definitely. That's why you got to do your research. So I have some allergies, which is probably why I'm not, the simplest reasons why I'm not going to get the vaccine. Think about it this way. Cornell is saying only white people are mandated to get the vaccine. Let's operate under the assumption the vaccine is going to protect us and it's going to be good for us. The white people have no choice. They're going to be getting the vaccine whether they like it or not. So that means there's a disease the vaccine is supposed to be stopping, and only the white people will be guaranteed to have been vaccinated because it's a mandate. I don't like the idea of a mandate. I'm not saying that people should be forced to do anything. What I'm saying is, If you have a cure for a disease and you have two groups of people, white people and non-white people, and you say all of the white people must be cured of this disease, whether you like it or not, everybody else, if you want it, let me know. So what do you think is going to happen? This is the crazy thing about the psychotic ideology of the woke left and why I constantly rag on this stuff. What they're saying makes no sense. We shouldn't give the vaccine to elderly white people because too many are white, recognizing they think the vaccine is going to help people. Then Cornell says we should only make the white people get the vaccine because other people may be, upset by that. What they're basically saying is, if we assume that this vaccine is a good thing for people, then actually, I'll put it this way. No matter how you frame it, it's like it's racist. And that's the way it always is, isn't it? Every possible angle of this. Making the white people take it and it's bad. Yeah, that's racism. Making the white people take it and it's going to cure them and then telling other people you figure it out for yourselves, then you're going to see the minorities suffering higher likelihood of COVID, right? And they keep telling us that the minority communities are more deeply impacted by this, but they're not mandating that these groups of people take the vaccine. The system is broken. The far left, what they're proposing is absolutely meaningless. And I bring you now to a very interesting thread. The first thing I want to say, when I talk about people complaining about the dangers of the vaccine and everything, Jim Roberts he used to work, I think, for Mashable. Now he's just, got 200,000 followers, verified Twitter user. He says, why hasn't Joe Biden been vaccinated by now? Makes no sense. Yes, interesting. Why hasn't Joe Biden been vaccinated by now? Seriously, shouldn't he be the first person to get the vaccine? Mike Pence got the vaccine. If we are expecting that Joe Biden is going to be president on January 20th, shouldn't he have been the first person to get the vaccine? Listen, we can talk about essential workers and the elderly, the Pfizer CEO saying, I'm not going to get the vaccine because I don't want to jump in front of the line. Okay, well, shouldn't the incoming president get it before everybody else? It's kind of important, don't you think? Strange. Joe Biden hasn't. That's what I mean by everything's broken and nothing makes sense. There's no rhyme or reason to what's going on. The elderly are too white. They shouldn't get the vaccine, but white students should be forced to get the vaccine and everyone else can decide. Wait, what? Which one is racist? Ask the woke left. Maybe that's the intent, to be confusing and unintelligible. But let's talk about the real ramifications of censorship. Patrick Collison is the CEO of Stripe. Stripe is the second largest payment processor. Think PayPal. Now, PayPal, I think, has like 78% of the market, and Stripe actually has like 22. I could be wrong about that, but it's big. Patrick Collison tweeted, someone I know has had some quite useful COVID-related posts removed from Medium, LinkedIn, and Nextdoor. They've been deemed COVID misinformation. It's not what the WHO endorses. I think his posts overstate the case for the treatment he's arguing for. They aren't without justification, however. He has some considerable scientific evidence on his side, including a small RCT. Now, I want to stop there. The World Health Organization has already advised against the lockdowns, saying it's a last resort of last resorts and it can be avoided. Why then are we seeing increasing lockdowns, which didn't work the first time, being implemented again? You see, that is against the World Health Organization's advice. Not that I think we should be mandated to just, only repeat what the World Health Organization says. There are certainly other experts in this world. But let me tell you something. The far left and their plan and everything that's going on. The Democrats have locked everything down. We're not meeting in person anymore and sharing ideas. Ideas are being pushed through social media and the internet. But they're going through a filter of what is deemed acceptable opinion. Keeping people indoors and away from each other stops the spread of more than just one kind of virus, the actual virus. They say it does. Apparently it's not, because a spike is happening like crazy. But it also spreads the it stops the spread of idea viruses. Now, that could impact the left as well, but here's what then happens. We can't go and meet with our friends and talk about stuff and have arguments. I mean, I still do my show for sure, but for the most part, we can't. But we can go online where big tech CEOs like, Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg can ban opinions. So right now, certain ideas are being crushed and filtered out of the discourse. Think about that. It's very, very interesting. What we're saying right now on this segment is in line with acceptable discourse. But what kind of conversations would be happening if we were in person? Well, I'll tell you, man. There's a guy who lives near me who's talking about some very, very serious consequences for everything that's going on. He's talking about guns and prepping and a bunch of crazy stuff. That's the kind of conversation they're hoping to avoid, which you can't have on social media, among other things. You can certainly say that it's racist to give white people the vaccine and racist to not make them get the vaccine. Sure, fine, whatever. But Patrick brings up a really good point. Let's read. He says, this year, we've come to better appreciate the fallibility and shortcomings of numerous well-established institutions. Masks don't work, for instance, while simultaneously entrenching more heavily mechanisms that assume their correctness, removing COVID misinformation. False claims about COVID or any disease are, of course, undesirable. But leaving aside the merits of content removal as the response, have we really figured out a sensible applied epistemology for operationalizing such designations? Okay, let me slow down and just tell you what's going on. We were told earlier this year by Dr. Fauci himself, masks don't work. That's what Dr. Fauci said. He was wrong. At the time, many conservatives were buying masks. I had people hitting me up being like, bro, if they're saying don't get a mask, you better go out and buy masks. And I was like, okay. And people were sending me masks. This is the funniest thing. Some of these people are now the ones saying, don't wear a mask. Blah. Okay. I got no problem wearing a mask. It's what's really funny. And I'm gonna say this. A lot of people are like, masks are a sign of obedience. I'm like, bro, is wearing a shirt a sign of obedience? I go to the store and they're like, no shirt, no shoes, no service. I can put a mask on while I'm in the store. I really don't care. I like it's your personal sovereignty, your independence is within you. There's certain give and take. Now, somebody wants to inject something into me. That's the line. Okay. If we're going to talk about choice, then certainly, I'm not going to accept a mandate. Now, to be honest, I'm not super worried about this vaccine, but I am worried about it a bit because we are getting tons of reports about negative effects. We're getting reports about Bell's palsy. Whether it's acceptable or not it's not up to me. The news is reporting it. We're hearing about anaphylaxis. Okay, it's not. We have this woman faint. I'm not going to assert my opinion on those things other than to say the media is reporting things that are scaring people. If you want to mandate that, sorry, you can't freak me out and scream in my face and then mandate, I get your vaccine. Patrick Collison made a really important point, though. If big tech and social media, at the behest of this leftist ideology and these resistance type Democrats who are like, we can't have misinformation be spreading, they're the ones who are spreading misinformation. There is no homogenized path towards a correct answer. You are not always going to be right. Neither will I. In fact, I'm wrong quite a bit, aren't I? I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think I have all the answers. I think I have opinions and I can read stuff and I can talk about it. And that means earlier in the year when they said don't buy masks, they were wrong. And now, based on the rules they've implemented, if they're wrong today, we can't counter that with the correct information. Meanwhile, they're giving us competing narratives. The elderly are too white. They shouldn't get the vaccine. But at colleges, the white people should be mandated to get the vaccine. Which is it? Which is it? And which one am I allowed to argue against? I don't even know. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the control. They will shut down your conversations even when they are wrong. And then what do? Facebook and Twitter and YouTube are not the experts. And I don't care about the World Health Organization because that's not the United States. I have a doctor. You have a doctor. So I tell you this, talk to your doctor. If you trust them, then go by what they say. You should always do that and ignore what the media has to say about this stuff. And I will stress too, look, I think it's kind of a silly idea. I mentioned it the other day, but a lot of people are starting to bring it up. Why are so many stories coming out where the vaccine is scary? Why did we have a video of a woman in Tennessee? They put her on camera and she faints. Then they say, well, for her, it's common. She has a condition. Why would you choose the woman with a condition who faints to stand in front of cameras? She's going to faint. Why are you telling me that an unnamed person in Alaska had an anaphylactic reaction, which is very severe? Why are you telling me about the Bell's palsy? Why are you telling me about these emergency alerts? Like you can't give the vaccine unless you have resuscitation measures readily available in the UK. Why do they keep saying it? Is a vaccine really that bad? Maybe these things really happened. And maybe it's the media desperate for ratings. And maybe, as many people are now saying, they're desperate for a way to say Trump is bad. You want to know what happened in the past few days? A lot of people were pointing out that Trump promised to get the vaccine out by the end of the year. And Trump has been saying, we must get it approved. We must get the vaccine to people. And then the media starts pushing these stories about all of the bad things about it. I do think it's a bit silly because part of me, I'm like, oh, come on. They wouldn't really do that, would they? I wouldn't put it past them, man. I would not put it past them. Earlier on, we saw all these stories where they said Trump will never do it. It's not possible. We're going to be in lockdown forever. The vaccine can't work. And even now, what are they saying? Even if you get the vaccine, you must be locked down. Why? Trump succeeded. Trump did the unthinkable and got the vaccine done and approved in less than a year. Now, you shouldn't have to get it unless you choose to get it. And you should talk to your doctor about it if it's right for you. That's the way you should always do it. I have allergies, so I'm concerned. I don't think it makes sense. Plus, I'm a strapping young lad. I'm not in line to get it anyway. The point is, take the side effects seriously. Look into the health effects. Take it all seriously. Do your research. And then ask your doctor. All right, that's the important thing you'll do. But why is it they're telling us the lockdown can't be lifted? And why is it that they're slapping us in the face with stories where they're like, it's actually bad? Could it be that, like many vaccines, it has its problems? Could it be that it was rushed out and there are some areas of concern people should have and it should be forced on people? And could it be that Trump pulled off a miracle? They were saying it would take I'm not kidding. Quotes from doctors. It would take a miracle to get the vaccine done. Then Trump does it, praises it, says, we're going to get this out. And they start saying, no, you still have to lock down. It's not. That was their plan. They want the Great Reset. They want the lockdown. They did not want Trump to pull this off. Now that the vaccine's here, what are they going to do? When Russia announced they had a vaccine, the media was like, no, not true. Then when we heard from these big pharmaceuticals who want that sweet green, that guaranteed government money, our money, they said, we have it. And the media said, but you still have to lock down. You still have to wear a mask. You still have to lock down. You still have to wear a mask. And people are fainting and getting sick. Okay, dude, you know what? Listen, I'm not a doctor. I go to the doctor when I do, and the doctor prescribes medication, and I just trust them. They're like, you're sick. This will cure you. Okay, I like in every profession, I can't go and do all this hard research to determine what the chemical makeup of this drug is. I do my research, though. And it turns out, I told the story the other day when I was once prescribed, it was an antibiotic. Traveling around the world, you want to make sure you're taken care of because sometimes water is dirty. I'll put it that way. I won't get too personal, but you go to countries like Turkey and Venezuela, you go to the doctor, right? And so one of the things they gave had some side effects, and I said, I don't think that's a good idea. And they said, okay, we'll give you a different one. Just that simple. So I trust my doctor, and that's what I think everybody needs to do. I think you need to watch out for media sensationalism, and I think we should all just point out in the end, the far left is crazy. Everybody's nuts and they hate Trump. So I have to wonder if a lot of the big narrative coming out about the vaccine is just because they want to make sure you don't believe Trump pulled it off. I know it does seem kind of silly, right? But they didn't want the vaccine to come out. They said it couldn't be done. They said Trump couldn't do it. Why would I believe now they're taking this seriously instead of just believing they want to make sure everybody hates Trump? Think about what's going on. Trump right now is fighting for the presidency, refusing to back down. Could you imagine what this is going to mean for the president? He got the miracle. He accomplished this. It's going to bolster his support at a time when he needs it more than ever. So no surprise these stories are coming out and people are fainting on camera. Oh no, the vaccine, Trump was wrong. They don't want you lining up behind Donald Trump. They don't want you standing up with him. Now, I'm not saying it's definitively. I'm just saying they definitely don't want you supporting Trump. It could just be that we've never had a media system like this while we've administered an emergency vaccine. And that's really it. So here we go. Last thing on the Twitter, as I'm seeing right now, the What's Happening tab. Pfizer says it has millions of doses of COVID-19 vaccine in a warehouse with no additional instructions for delivery. Once again, the vaccine was accomplished and available, but it's Trump's fault. You see what they're doing? We'll see what they're doing. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. That's the URL, not the name of the channel. You can find it by searching Tim Pool on YouTube. I think we got really big news. Let me just give you the gist of it. On the podcast, you probably already heard the whole segment, but there was a briefing today on the biggest hack in American history, essentially. And as soon as they got out, they cut off Joe Biden from defense briefings and transition. Now that's interesting. I'll see y'all at 4, and we'll talk about that story. YouTube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.